Welcome to The World Today. I'm Sana Maqbool, and in today's show we will be talking about the recent statement by Prime Minister Imran Khan, who says that there will be no talks with India until the special status of the Kashmiris is restored. He said this while inaugurating the 24/7 Durrrani border, and we'll see more of his statements from this address, where he also spoke about anyone who is to instigate the struggle in Kashmir or to use it for its own benefit is an enemy not just of Pakistan but also of Kashmir. We will also be looking at Pakistan's decision to deny the Indian Premier Narendra Modi's request for using its airspace on the 20th of September. We'll see what sort of what implications does the decision have, and what have been the considerations that Pakistan has taken before making this decision, and whether or not it has any legal implications for Pakistan. Unfortunately, we'll also be looking at this recent development in Kashmir, which of course has a devastating history in terms of child abuse and child pornography, and we also have now seen the 3 minor boys who have been also suspected of being assaulted sexually, have been recovered, and police is trying to investigate who is behind the incident, while 2 boys still remain missing. So we'll take a look at exactly what needs to be done, since this has been going on for a while now, and every year or so we hear reports coming in from Kashmir. To talk more in detail regarding these issues, we have been joined with us in the studios international affairs expert Mr. Hannan Khan. Thank you for being with us today, sir. We also will have with us MT Global Village Space and senior analyst Ma'am Najma. Thank you for being with us, ma'am. Of course, I'll start with you, sir. We look at the Prime Minister's recent statement, and this has been Pakistan's reiteration for a while now, where they say that they've put certain conditionalities to any particular dialogue with India. They've outrightly refused any backdoor talks and said unless the special status is given back to Kashmir and the curfew restrictions are reversed, then only can a dialogue take place. How do you see the stance by Pakistan just before the upcoming session of the UN General Assembly?
Yeah, actually, that's very justified stance from the Pakistan government, and PM is very clear about it. The reason is, if you look at the history between Pakistan and India dialogue, right, it has been so many times started and without any results. Then it was on our end, it was always saying that, like there was some things they were asking us to do from our end. But this is the time when Kashmiris are suffering, right? Last 47 days is the continuous curfew, and there is no food, there is no resources for them. And now Pakistan is absolutely right that there is no possibility of any dialogues unless the Prime Minister Modi government finish this revocation of Article 370, because it is not about a small matter. It's about the right of basic human rights. And then Pakistan government is very clear with their stance for, yes, we are ready to dialogue. It is the problem of the Kashmir will be resolved with the dialogues. We do understand that. But the dialogues must be on an equal level, must be conclusive, where we can expect some kind of results there. It cannot be dialogue for the sake of gaining the time for India. Because if India wants to change the intentions, and if they want to change the people's opinion or divert their intentions from the actual what's happening in Kashmir, they cannot change it like that. And if they are saying that they want to do the dialogue, they need to take some steps. Like Prime Minister Imran Khan said, that if India will take 1 step, he is willing to take 2 steps further. But now the situation is very catastrophic for the Kashmiris. And we all must stand next with Kashmiris, and we are always standing next with the Kashmiris, that their lives are under threat. Hundreds of people reported have been killed. There are no medicines. There are so many rapes are happening. So many atrocities are going on in Kashmir. So it's not the right time for dialogues unless this Prime Minister Modi takes the revocation of 370A back. We have seen that Supreme Court have given a decision in Indian Supreme Court, directed Prime Minister Modi to normalize the situation in Kashmir. But we have seen nothing's happening there. It's 3-4 days now, but there is no intention even from the Indian government to say or to see that they are releasing or they are lifting the curfew from anywhere, or they are letting international media to access there, or they are letting even political activities or political personals to go and see what is happening there. It's not allowing even to the human rights activists to access in most of the parts of the Kashmir. Yes, they are trying to show something is normal or few areas or anything. It's all fake. On the ground reality, it's nothing has been normalized. And as long as the Kashmiris are suffering, nothing is normalized. Because we were talking to dialogue with Kashmir on the basis when the situation is normalized, and then we can talk about how we can resolve the issue. And the resolution of the issue is only one way, to give the right of self-determination to the Kashmiris.
Right. Another thing that Prime Minister said very clearly to a question was that anyone who wants to or tries to cross over to Kashmir to fight is an enemy of Pakistan and the Kashmir. Do you think, ma'am, that this puts an end to Indian claims of Pakistan instigating terrorist activities in Kashmir?
No, it doesn't put an end to it, because of course they have to keep saying that. That is going to be exactly what Narendra Modi will talk about at the UN on the 26th, 27th, when he has his speech on Friday. The Prime Minister saying it is for that very reason. We've already, for the last 1.5 months, the Army, DG, ISPR, various people from the Foreign Office have been saying this statement already, that we think India will conduct a false flag operation, and they will claim that terrorists have gone over the border. And that is the reason why the Prime Minister has once again reiterated this point, that you are not a friend of Kashmiris. You are going to delegitimize their cause, their claims. If you do this, do not go over any border, whether it's from Pakistan or for anyone else. You're not helping Pakistan by doing that, and you're not helping the Kashmiris by doing that. The Indians will definitely want something like that to happen, and we would not be surprised if even before the discussion that the talk that Modi gives in the UNGA, something like that happens. If we see in 2016 when Burhan Wani was martyred, straight after that, there was an uproar all over the world, where what was happening to the Kashmiris was being covered by Western press, just like it is right now. For almost 3 months, there was a curfew in Kashmir after Burhan Wani's death, and then all of a sudden, Uri happened. And Uri was claimed that Pakistani-based militants have done this, and the Indians had a story to tell the world, and the world switched over and took their side. And that is what, of course, Pakistanis and Kashmiris are worried about right now, that Indians will be interested in creating another false flag operation of some type.
Right. A statement by Antonio Guterres recently, before the start of the 74th UN General Assembly session, has once again talked about, of course, an end to the human rights violations, but then, of course, has called upon both India and Pakistan to resolve their dispute. When we see, of course, that the international community is condemning the human rights violations there, but then again is emphasizing on dialogue between India and Pakistan, what are we really hoping to achieve? Of course, we're expecting both Modi and Prime Minister Imran Khan to give passionate addresses at the General Assembly. But really, as an impact to the international community, what is going to come out except, do you think anything else is going to come out except the fact that there's more emphasis on a bilateral engagement?
Before that, I would say, as you said, there was pressure from the international community, but I would say still it was not done enough by international community to put the pressure on India to restore the normal situation in Kashmir. And yes, you're right. It is gonna be a pressure, and both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Imran Khan, they're both going to put their case in front of United Nations General Assembly. But I think at this time, our case is very strong, and I expect very strong statement from Prime Minister Imran Khan, which the whole nation is expecting, that it's gonna clearly tell the world that what is happening exactly there and what it is turning out to be. It is getting into a sort of a genocide there, and it's the world's responsibility now to intervene in it. And I would say that we are expecting not only from Prime Minister Imran Khan, we are expecting from other heads of the states to mention this situation in Kashmir in their speeches. because it's, we do understand it's a bilateral issue, but it is a nuclear flashpoint as well. So other heads of the states must consider that, and they must mention in their speech that this matter needs to be resolved. And when it comes to matter needs to be resolved, it has to be with the wishes of the people of Kashmir. And it cannot be, it is not like a piece of cake, or it's not like some small thing that anybody can forcefully take it. India is trying to do what we have seen from Israel, they did it in Palestine state. But now we are expecting that not only Prime Minister Imran Khan will emphasize on the case of Kashmiris, rather the other Muslim country heads should mention it and should clarify their position. I'm sorry to say that rest of the world still, I was expecting them to come more clearly against whatever happening in Kashmir. But because of their political, I should say, problems or whatever reasons, they are not condemning this so strongly what they should have done it. On the second, I will say that yes, Prime Minister Imran Khan is going to put Kashmiri people case very strongly, and people of Kashmir are looking forward for that.
I'd just add in there that I would not expect too much strong statements from the Muslim world, because they've let us down on every single occasion when it comes to Kashmir. They just give no importance whatsoever to Kashmiris. Arab countries think this is a South Asian problem. They do not think of this as a Muslim problem.
Right.
We, on the other hand, have thought of Palestine as a Muslim problem, and we do not consider it an Arab problem. So we need to reevaluate our own position on Palestine. Why do we take Palestine's position? If we consider that a Muslim problem, then the very least the Arab countries need to do is consider Kashmir as a Muslim problem. But in going to UNGA, I don't expect much strong statements from most of the other countries. A special session was not even held at the UNHCR in Geneva. So yes, 58 countries came out and signed a declaration saying, no, this is the wrong, what is happening there. But most of those countries were very small African countries. They hardly matter in the real world. No special session was held by the United Nations Human Rights Council. If they didn't do anything, what are we expecting from the UNGA meeting? What I think is more important is the Prime Minister and all his team needs to have hundreds of meetings altogether with people in Washington, with people in New York, with the diaspora, with the people who matter, with newspaper editors. They should be sitting down with the New York Times, with the Washington Post. In every single think tank around the country, they should be sitting down and they should be highlighting the human rights violations that are happening in Kashmir, and they should be highlighting the self-determination case. And in my view, we should not go on about the nuclear weapons thing. The reason being that when we talk about nuclear weapons, everybody wants to get rid of ours. They don't think of it. So we'll go down the wrong track if we start talking about nuclear weapons. Everybody knows we are a nuclear country. Everybody knows India is a nuclear country, and everybody knows what can happen, right? We have to talk about Kashmir, their human rights, and their right to self-determination.
But isn't the threat of a possible escalation between two nuclear armed states an incentive for the international community to take the issue of Kashmir seriously?
But realistically, a nuclear war is not going to happen. So
that's what Prime Minister Imran Khan has mentioned a few times, and not only Prime Minister Imran, most of the think tanks in Pentagon and everywhere, if you go into so many reports, they are saying that this is the most dangerous flashpoint of nuclear war in the world, and that's why the whole, the G8 countries and other countries, they should intervene.
But that's exactly why we don't need to make that point, because they're making it for us. If we start talking about nuclear war, the next thing they're going to think of when things are not going so well in our favor, they'll think we need to take out their nuclear arms, because then the track, you'll start a new track of thinking, right? We don't need to tell people we have nuclear weapons. We have them, and the Pentagon talks about it all the time.
The whole world knows that our nuclear is for deterrence. And when it comes to deterrence, yes, we have all the rights.
We have first use policy.
No, I mean, it's not about first use policy. India has taken off from their first use policy as well.
Right.
I mean, Indian Interior Minister has clearly said that we have changed our stance on not using it first, because everybody knows, everybody should know that when we say that we will fight till the last soldier, last bullet, it doesn't mean that we will be keeping our nuclear warheads in the shelves. No, because the thing is, world needs to intervene. World needs to intercept the whole situation before it gets worse escalation.
Right.
Our stand is very clear. Our stand is very clear that we want peace in the region, but not at the cost of 8 million Kashmiris' lives. That there is no peace can be obtained without bringing the resolution or solution of the Kashmir issue. That is very important. And yes, I think if at the G8 summit or other, on the larger scale of heads of states, if we should have been make them realize that this matter is very, very sensitive. They need to understand the criticality and the sensitivity of the matter. Sometimes I don't want to say, but I want them to realize that yes, it could turn into anything.
Right, and especially, of course, we also need to look into the fact that there is a volatile government that's sitting in India, and any strategic miscalculation can happen. So perhaps you cannot rule out any possibility altogether. But of course, a nuclear war is going to destroy almost half of the globe, and everyone's going to be affected. So there are going to be no winners out of that situation. Right. Another thing people have eyes on with regards to the UN General Assembly is the possibility of a meeting between President Donald Trump and Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Imran Khan. And although this would go against India's claims of not having any third-party mediation for Kashmir, do you think there's a possibility of it happening, since Trump has been emphasizing on it?
There's not going to be any possibility of that.
Okay.
I mean, no. Sorry.
Indian,
I have no longer answer.
I agree with her. The reason is, we need to understand that Trump was saying he's willing to do the mediation between Pakistan and India. But after talking to Prime Minister Modi, he changed his stance straight away. He brought it into a bilateral issue rather than bringing as a mediation. So this is same we should expect.
And also, how does Narendra Modi stand in front of his own population end of the day? You have to go back to your population. How do you say, I went to New York and I was put under pressure, and therefore I sat down and talked to Imran Khan? He's never going to do it like that.
Another part of Mr. Trump's statement was that a lot of progress is being made in this regard, and some analysts have been talking about maybe some engagements are currently also underway with both Prime Minister Imran Khan and Narendra Modi. Is there a possibility of maybe some backdoor diplomacy there?
You know, there was already talk about backdoor diplomacy before August the 5th. Yeah. So there was talk that, apparently between Pakistan and India, there was backdoor diplomacy happening between the name mentioned was Suhail Mahmood and Ajay Bisaria, which is the Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan.
But I think it is too early to say that.
After August the 5th, it was basically a shut door. Pakistan could not talk to India after that. And Modi clearly gave the message that if I'm not interested in talks, because he did what he did with revoking the special the Article 370 and 35A. So I think there's not many possibilities of that happening in the near future. We have to take a step back. He has to, the way he'll do it is the Indian High Court the Supreme Court has said, return situation to normalcy. He'll do that slowly. People will come on the streets as soon as he does that. So I think India in the next 6-7 months will have a very difficult time in Kashmir. Trying to show some kind of normalcy in Kashmir is not going to be easy.
However, even any particular return to normalcy would only mean return to what was before the 5th of August, which was also not normal if we're going to look at it. Maybe, do you think that in such a scenario where it does actually happen or gradually happens, don't you think that Pakistan is at the weaker end of the situation? Because of course normalcy in Kashmir was never normal for the past 7 decades.
Yeah. No, but normalcy won't mean prior to August the 5th anyway. Okay. Normalcy will mean the curfew is lifted. Okay. The Supreme Court is not saying and has clearly said we're giving no order on the restitution of the articles, both the articles 370 and 335A. The Supreme Court has definitely said that. That will be a separate case altogether. Right now, they're talking about bringing back the internet, bringing back telephone lines, starting some logistical support and infrastructure and so on and so forth, which has been closed now.
I think what India has done by revoking this Article 370 and 35A, there is no question that we can expect any normal situation there, even if they lift the curfew, right? Even if you think about that, I might disagree with that. It's not going to take 6 months. It's because people of Kashmir are going to react it very strongly, and the whole world knows we should expect that as well. It is going to happen, and it's not the matter of we do understand that the basic human rights being violated, that they have no access to the internet and everything. even if they restore it, the first thing will happen is it's going to be a very, very strong protest in Kashmir, all over in Kashmir, and it's gonna be end up with violence and other. I'm afraid to say, but it's gonna end up by some more killings by Indian troops, and it's gonna be more bloodshed there. So that's the point where, like Prime Minister Imran Khan is trying to stop the Kashmiris from our end, not to cross the border, just to show his gesture of peace. But we don't know how long it will stay as it is. If the Kashmiris' blood has been shed there for days and days, and every day we are hearing hundreds of people are dying, how long we will stop our Kashmiris? How long Pakistan can stay on this
And he's
situation?
also pointed towards the fact that these decisions will lead to even further extremism.
That is what it is. Because if they think that if Pakistan is gonna, they're gonna make a false any stage drama or anything, it's not gonna be like that. It might be the genuine people of Kashmir will react against Indian army. They will react against that occupation of India.
Well, Burhan Wani was a genuine Kashmiri, but they refused to accept that, right?
Yeah,
they
but
just want their own story.
Eventually, when the independent investigation went on, they all were agreed that Burhan Wani has nothing to do with Pakistan or anything. He was a young freedom fighter, and he has become a symbol of freedom of Kashmiris. He is a symbol now.
Right.
And it is after Maqbool Badshah's martyrdom, he is a new person who has given a new life to the freedom of the Kashmiris.
Yeah.
They are fighting for freedom. We need to understand, we need to tell the world on a diplomatic level, everywhere, in all our embassies and everywhere, we just need to point out only one thing, that the Kashmiri struggle is a political struggle. It's a pure freedom struggle. It has nothing to do with terrorism. It has nothing to do with extremism. It is only and only purely for their right of self-determination, a right of independent state. It is their choice. If they want to live with Pakistan, they want to live as an independent country. The whole world has seen that they are asking for freedom. And everywhere in the streets and everywhere, their slogan is only one, that Kashmir banega Pakistan. Kashmir will be Pakistan. So
but I disagree. I don't think we should be going on that particular slogan.
It is eventually fact
because
on
you
the
have
ground.
to fight. You have to fight for their self-determination.
Yeah. Right. So
and if
it's
they
a matter of
choose,
their
that's
choice.
a different thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if we go and sell it to the world, and our TV channels are showing, Kashmir banega Pakistan, you are selling the wrong story to the world. The world has to be told this is a human right crisis, and which it is, and it is their self-determination right. They have the right to choose.
Right.
They should have the right to choose if it comes to the right of self-determination. And whatever the people of Kashmir will decide, I'm sure Pakistan will accept it.
Okay, do you see any possibility of any sort of engagement or settlement or any sort of deal happening between India and Pakistan without the reversal of these articles?
I hardly see that at this point of time. I hardly see that. But the whole, it's very critical what happens in UN General Assembly. And as you said, there might be some kind of intervention from President Trump, where he will bring something. But I hardly see that Pakistan will compromise on anything less than finishing this revocation of Article 370.
And Pakistan tried every time. And Imran Khan, when he came into government, his first speech, he spoke about the 2 steps forward. You take 1 step forward and we'll take 2 steps forward. So there's no doubt that Imran Khan at every point has put his hands forward and wanted to start peace talks with Narendra Modi. And it's very clear that India is not interested. So at this point, the only option Pakistan has is to say, well, this is one thing we cannot, this is a red line for us. We will, we've done everything we can for you, but Kashmir is a red line for us. What you have done is not acceptable, and we are with our Kashmiri brothers and sisters, and we will support their right for self-determination in front of the world.
Right. A question that was posed to Mr. Antonio Guterres was relating to the fact that, of course, the resolution of a dispute is dependent upon the UN resolutions, and he said that. But then he also said that that's dependent upon the parties then and their good offices, and then they have to sort of implement it. But what if a certain party involved is not willing to come to the table, or is not willing to actually go for the settlement that the UN Security Council resolutions provide? So in that case, what capacity does the UN have?
Exactly. And we have seen in past what Israel did, and for last 20 years, there were many resolutions was vetoed by America, or there was a resolution, and Israel denies that. This is the pattern which India is trying to follow, which India is following, that they are denying the resolutions of United Nations. But I would say that now the time has come when it's not a lot of time for India. Now they have to give the right of self-determination to the Kashmiris. It is because this movement will spread into the other states of India. There are the Muslims in other states of India feeling very insecure.
It's already happening, yes.
Yeah, they are feeling very insecure in all parts of India. Not only Muslims, we have seen Sikhs are very insecure, and they are ready for their independent movement for Khalistan. We have seen the independence movement in Nagaland, and we have seen what's happening in churches, what's happening with Christians in India. So actually, since this Modi government have come and bring this RSS ideology, it's getting the Indian is following the pattern of I should say a different state, which they're not going to accept anything from the United Nations. They are not willing to accept what international community is saying. But it cannot last longer. As long as we, on our end, on political end or on a diplomatic end, Pakistan needs to explain the world again and again on all the, I would say, diplomatic venues, that this is the time when we need to decide this matter before the escalation gets more and more.
Pakistan also needs to point out to the UN that it needs to take a position on this, because the last 5 or 6 years, especially since we've seen the rise of governments in Eastern Europe, right-wing governments in Eastern Europe, you've had people like Trump being elected in 2016. Every one of these leaders is questioning what is the role of the UN and globalism in general. So the UN is already under threat anyway, that they're becoming irrelevant to the world order. So Pakistan needs to remind the UN this, that if you are really interested in remaining relevant to the world order, then you need to do some action on some of your resolution, and you need to make a fuss about it, and you need to ask India. On the one hand, India wants to become a member and has been wanting to become a member of the UNGA for decades now. And on the other hand, they don't think the UN is relevant when it comes to UN resolutions. How can you can't have both things, right?
Especially when it comes to the implementation of UN resolutions against Iraq, against Iran or other countries. The whole world gets together and put them into force for the implementation of those sanctions and everything. The same criteria should have been adopted for India now. That they need to act upon the resolutions.
And despite this momentum, there is still an emphasis in India talking about this an internal matter. We had the External Minister of India saying the same thing just days ago, that the revocation of the articles is still an internal matter.
They will always say that.
No, they will always say that.
In that scenario, do you think that the international pressure that we are trying to create is being redundant?
I think this is the way they are trying to release the international pressure, by saying it's their internal matter. While we have seen Prime Minister Modi has clearly admitted, when President Trump was saying he's willing to mediate the situation, and then they said, no, it is a bilateral problem. And I think by saying one of the ministers or anything, any personnel from the Indian government, it does not have that much importance in the world, because the whole world knows that this is at least a bilateral issue. I would say it has become an issue for the whole world to consider, to resolve this matter, because it was a bilateral issue as long as these atrocities, this threat of genocide was not there. The way they are killing the Kashmiri people, it is a matter of the world now, because we don't want it to be too late for the Kashmiris, too late for the rest of the world.
That's exactly the analogy that Imran Khan has been given.
Exactly.
This is fascism, this is Hitler, this is appeasement. And this is the question that the world community needs to be raised again and again. And during his speech, that are you going to do what happened in 1938 when Neville Chamberlain went and appeased the Germans? Is it appeasement, and this is what you're doing? You're interested in your trade with India, you're interested in selling arms to India, and you don't care about 8 million people and the potential bloodshed of Kashmiris that has happened for the last 60, 70 years. Over 250,000 Kashmiris have died in Kashmir from various kind of ways that they've died, whether it's soldiers killing or other crime. So this is something the world needs to think about, that do we let this continue? And I think Imran Khan's emphasis on Hitler is exactly the right emphasis. And if it was such an internal matter, a couple of weeks ago, there was a statement by Trump saying that that Modi has told him that Imran Khan should not refer to him as Hitler. So if Modi was not being affected by what Imran Khan is saying, he wouldn't ask the American president to call Imran Khan to admonish him or to say to him that he shouldn't be called
Yes, and
Hitler.
perhaps these parallels have resonated well with the people at
yeah,
the
They're
of
not just
course.
parallels, they're
That
true.
is- they are
This is-
true,
I mean, if
and
you look at
yeah.
RSS, you look at their symbol, you
They
look
are
at their
following the
ideology.
same ideology.
They believe in a true race, they believe in an Aryan race, the way the Germans did.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. You look at the laws that were passed in Germany against the Jews. If you look at the series of laws that were passed, they're exactly the same as what is happening in Kashmir, what the Indians are doing. And not only Kashmir, Assam. I mean, in Assam,
exactly.
there is a big
Exactly.
issue there of the National Register of Citizens,
Yeah.
where thousands and hundreds of thousands of Bengali Muslims
Yeah.
are being taken off the citizenship
2
list of
million
India.
Muslims are at the risk of stateless,
Yeah.
of being stateless.
Because of the RSS control, because of the fact that they're not Hindu enough, because they're not Hindus basically.
Exactly.
Right, and this is spreading all over India now, so it's not just a matter of Kashmir.
Exactly, it's not. That's what my point is, that by making the 2 million people in Assam stateless and by bringing the laws which are so racist laws, which are based on Hindu extremism or which are based on the ideology that there should not be any other religion in all over continent. It looks like they are trying to live in 17th century. It's not possible now, and they cannot forcefully they cannot force the people of India to change the religion or leave the country. This is the choice what they are giving under the RSS ideology. But it's not acceptable for Pakistan. It should not be acceptable for the rest of the world, because we are living in 21st century where the news, media, everything is so open that if anything happens, it spreads straight away. Now, as happening in Assam, whatever happened in Khalistan, what they did in 1984, all the world should remind that what they did in 1984 against Sikhs in Punjab, they cannot repeat that history. But Sikhs have that revenge in their hearts. I'll tell you, the time will come when the Sikh movement will get very strengthened because of all what's happening in Kashmir.
Not just in 1984, in 1983, over 3,000 Muslims were killed in Assam in something called the Nelly massacre. And 3,000 is the official number. Unofficial numbers put it at over 10,000 people were killed that day. And it was in 6 hours. In 6 hours, the Hindus of Assam came and killed thousands of Muslims.
When it comes to the history of killing the Muslims in India,
It's
it is
rampant.
for 71 years. Whatever Modi did being a chief minister of
In
Gujarat,
Gujarat, exactly.
right? What he did, it was inhuman. It was like it has never been example that the state police is like guarding the people who are destroying the properties of Muslims, people who are killing the Muslims, and the state police was like supporting them.
Right, they're
And
facilitating these
them.
crimes.
And that time, Prime Minister Modi was on the side of the Hindus, and it's so unfortunate that a person like that became the Prime Minister of India.
And that goes to say a lot, of course, about where the country might be heading. To talk a bit more about Pakistan's denial of Modi's request of using the airspace, how do you see this? Of course, given the tensions between India and Pakistan, do you think that this was the right decision?
Yes, of course, it was the right decision. There was no other option. I mean, we also refused the president, 2 weeks earlier when he was off to Germany, I think on September the 5th or something. It's to point out to Modi, he is not living isolated. He cannot do anything he wants in his region. He is interrelated with every other country on his border, and we are part of that. So he cannot get away with just doing anything in his own country, especially with regard to the Kashmiris or the Muslims in India. We have an attachment to the people. We believe in the human rights of all people in India, whether it's the Sikhs, whether it's the Muslims. So we wanted to give him that message that, we can close the airspace. I mean, it's similar to the message we gave in 27th after the Balakot in February.
But as per international law, is Pakistan bound to grant permission to India?
Yes.
Can India appeal to the
what
International Civil
law
Aviation
says
Committee?
on it, what international aviation law says on it, yes, they can appeal on it, and if Pakistan still denies, they can put a very hefty fine, and they can put some penalties on Pakistan aviation not to giving the airspace to the Indian. But that is what Pakistan has no choice.
Long
but
process.
And again, Pakistan can again appeal or review for that as well.
But in 1970, an interesting
Yeah.
example is in 1970, India closed its airspace to Pakistan. When Pakistan was in the middle of a civil war with East Pakistan, India closed its airspace. Our aircraft was not allowed to travel over India to Bangladesh, what is now Bangladesh, right? East Pakistan at that time. So India closed the airspace in 1970-71, end of 70-71. And that, of course, they were not allowed to do. Pakistan went to various international bodies on that. And ultimately, a ruling came in Pakistan's favor. But it was in end of 1971-72. It was too late, basically, at that point. But the ruling came in our favor. So technically, yes, no country can allow to do that. But then they're more than welcome to take it to the international
and we are
courts.
looking for, to be honest, if whatever happened after this General Assembly session, I think Pakistan may consider to completely close their airspace. Because if it is just to put another way of showing the world that how serious the matter is, and this is to increase the pressure. And I think by not allowing Prime Minister Modi was the right choice.
After the Balakot, when we did it for 3 or 4 months, we only opened this airspace in July. It cost India millions of dollars. And a lot of their Air India flights stopped as a result of it. I remember reading that Qatar Airlines stopped. You know, they used to have 2 or 3 flights to India. It became 1 flight only. Economically, it became very infeasible to travel to India. It created huge problems for India.
Right, we're short on time, so we're just going to go ahead to our last segment, in which, of course, there were protests that were held in Kasur over the murder of 3 minor boys. We know 2 of them, 2 are still missing, so a total of 5. And this is not just the first time that something like this has happened in Kasur. Of course, Zainab's case was highlighted throughout Pakistan, and then before that, there was this huge child pornography scandal that also came out in 2015, if I'm not wrong. And this seems to be an endless spree that's going on in Kasur, and so it goes to show that perhaps nothing very substantial is being done. Of course, there are knee-jerk reactions of people being suspended and all, but there's no actual change.
I'll say we need to understand that it is very, very big money involved in it. The dark web on the websites and everything. It's a billions of dollars industry all over the world. And unfortunately, a country like Pakistan is an easy catch for them. And then the city like Kasur, I mean, if you go there and see, there is hardly any resources or any kind of communication or anything, and vulnerability is on a very high scale there. Unfortunately, local, I would say local community needs to be very aware of the situation. The local politicians should come on the front to tackle this matter. It cannot be tackled by only law enforcement agencies. It has to be taken as a social problem. It has to be taken consideration by the local MPs, members of parliament, provincial assembly, local politicians, and the community needs to come on the front. And yes, there should be very, very serious punishment for that.
I think, a judicial commission of some type should be set up to inquire about this. I mean, like you said, it's happened. A massive ring was discovered in 2015, then Zainab in 2017, and then there's actually been more instances in between before this. So why is it happening in Kasur again and again? There has to be a reason. And I would say that a lot of the local communities are probably involved, especially the influential people.
So widespread, absolutely.
There has to be something going on.
That's why I'm saying the local people will know that who else is involved in it. So they need to come on front and point out the people who are doing what they're doing. And then they can bring into justice. And there should be a very serious punishment for anybody involved.
You should bring in police officers.
Yes.
I think you should bring in police officers from KP, nothing to do with that local territory, so that we can totally inquire who is involved, because the police
and have an objective investigation.
What we find is usually in these small towns, the police is involved as well at some point, whether it's turning a blind eye or it's more than that. There's a role of the police as well as the MPs, MNAs. There's a role of local influential. So how do you bring that? You have to bring in people from the outside to actually investigate.
Another problem is with, of course, the laws that we need in place. We have the Zainab Alert Bill, and apparently it's been with the standing committee, has never been sent to the NA. So there's a lot of problem for actual laws to even be passed and trickle down to then being implemented.
That's another main issue. We need to re-look into the punishments. That's the most important thing. We need to go through what kind of punishments we can implement, and how good the justice system could be there. Our judiciary system needs to be very active on it. Our the prosecution needs to be very active on it, and they should make sure that if anybody has been, put
We
on
had one
charges.
execution in the
Yeah,
Zainab
it's
case,
only
but of
one
course that's not
execution.
enough.
If anybody has been under these charges, there should be complete investigation, complete prosecution, quickest possible, and it has bring into the example for the public as well, that people should know that if anybody is doing such a worse crime, it's a crime against humanity. It's not only it's unacceptable, and this crime must be dealt very seriously, and the justice should be very quick. It should have been sent straight to the anti-terrorist courts, and it should have been dealt within like 30 days courts, because the sooner the people will get the justice, the sooner is better.
Right, and of course we still have 2 boys missing, so we must
Exactly, we
make our
pray for
efforts
them,
even
yeah.
more than it is required.
Yes.
Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you
with
so
us,
much.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
And well, viewers, you heard the conversation. Of course, much remains to be seen on what is going to happen in Kashmir, and many other efforts are still required, even within Pakistan, to make the situation better. Thank you for watching.
The Faisal Mosque is the largest mosque in Pakistan